Are you an active investor or a passive investor? All I know is that if you are active, you need to be looking at how you can eventually get to passive. And that's exactly what we're talking about with Lane Kawaoka today on The Fearless Investor. Hey everyone, welcome into the Fearless Investor Podcast. I'm Kyle Stanley. And if you haven't already, make sure you press pause right now, subscribe to our podcast, and rate and review, please. If you're watching on the YouTube channel, go ahead and like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. But really, when it comes to the podcast, we really are looking for more ratings and reviews. So do us a favor, give us those 5 stars and leave us a nice review so other people can see this show and get notified and know that this is the best investing show ever. So let's talk now about what we're doing today with Lane Kawaoka, who's coming to us from Honolulu, Hawaii. Lane got into real estate when he was just out of college, and he was started in the single family realm, just like a lot of people. You know, there's especially myself. I started in single family. I'm looking one day to go into multifamily. That's the big question, right? Can you start in multifamily right away? There's the Grant Cardones that say that you can, and then there's a lot of people that say that you can't. Well, Lane started in single family and graduated in multifamily. And what I want you to hear is what he would do if he had to do it all over again, and just how simple he makes everything sound. So let's get to it with Lane Kawaoka. Hey, welcome into the Fearless Investor Podcast. I've got Lane Kawaoka on the call today, coming in from Honolulu, Hawaii. I would say, how's the shelter-in going? But, since you're on an island, you're usually used to having some island fever here. So what is the experience that you guys have? Are you fully sheltered in over there?
Yeah, and it's 85 degrees, slightly breezy. Aloha, everybody.
Yeah, exactly. You got to stare at that from inside. Well, Lane, you've got also the Simple Passive Cash Flow podcast. So I want to make sure people go and check that out. Right off the bat, let's get started with what is your most interesting investing story, if you can.
So the one I'd like to highlight is, I started my investing in Seattle, just buying rental properties, buy and hold. Didn't know anything about the rent to value ratios or primary markets. And my big leap that I did way back when in 2012 was I went out of state, bought a house in Birmingham, one of these turnkey rentals. And then I never looked back since. Bought for cash flow and got off the appreciation bandwagon. And thankfully I did that.
Awesome. So you're a big cash flow guy, appreciation. Probably just like me, I always say appreciation is that fourth way of earning income in real estate that really should just be looked at as a bonus, not banking on it. Is that kind of your approach as well?
Exactly. Icing on top of the cake, but I eat no cake here. No carbs.
No cake, no carbs. That's good. Well, Lane, let's jump into your story, man. If you can tell me a little bit about, what brought you into real estate and, this whole passive cash flow and where you're at today. Would love to hear your background.
Yeah, so it's actually pretty boring. Just like a lot of working professionals, we grew up brainwashed by our parents to go to school, get a good job. I became an engineer. Actually got a couple of degrees in engineering. Started working for that, and I didn't really like it. And I became a landlord because I bought a house to live in. Because again, brainwashed by that whole mentality of buy your house to live in.
Mm-hmm.
And then my first property was that Seattle property. Bought it for $350. I put in about $80 into it as a down payment, and the rents were $2,200 a month, and the mortgage was $1,600, and that was a lot of beer money to a young 20-year-old kid back then. And I was like, shoot, this is my ticket out of my crappy job that I don't like. So that was where it all began.
Okay. And you were 20 when you got that property?
Yeah, I think I was maybe 21, 22 when I got that one.
Wow. Yeah. And what were you doing full time?
I was a construction supervisor engineer, working on the road 100% of the time. So that was another part of it. Because I was on the road, I had that big house to myself, and I was only there on Saturday. And I was like, this is stupid. It doesn't seem like all my assets are working for me.
Well, so, yeah, the asset was really a liability, right?
Right. I mean, at the time, in your 20s, that's the time to do it. I mean, some of these guys are house hacking in their 30s or 40s. I don't know, man. I don't know about that.
You're
Yeah.
talking to one of them. Well, I house hack other units on my property, but I don't house hack rooms out of my home.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, that
That's fine. That's fine. But
okay. I get Lane's approval. That's good. That's good. So so now you know you get started and you see all this, like you called it, beer money coming in, and now it's a way to be able to see this way out of being on the road a lot and in a job that it sounds like you probably weren't so fulfilled with. So what steps did you take after that?
yeah, I mean, one of my things that really helped me was I was just really frugal. Saved a lot of money, followed all the personal finance blogs up to that point. But then I got more and more sophisticated about buying in secondary and tertiary markets as opposed to places like Seattle, where there's just, like California, there's just a lot of dumb money there pushing prices up. And then I, focused on buying for cash flow. So the rent to value ratio is 1% or higher. And I was able to save maybe like 30 to 60 grand a year at my day job. And all that money went into buying more and more rentals
Awesome.
every single year. But it took a while. I mean, it took a while to get up to 11 rentals in 2014, 15.
Okay. So how many years did it take you to get up to those 11 rentals?
I started in 2009 with the first one. So about 6 years or so.
Okay, so you're basically getting about two per year on average. Um, eh, then now you're doing a lot more of the syndication for bigger units. So did you just get to that point where you're like, man, I'm tired of this one-off kind of deals, or how did you make that transition?
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of did the math and, operating the deals in 2014, 15. I just realized like at a few $100s of cash flow for property, that's a lot of stinking work
Mm-hmm.
for just $3,000 a month. And I needed more like 10 grand to be able to retire and quit my day job. So that means 30 properties. With 10, 11 properties, I had eviction or two every year,
Okay.
and some kind of big issue that happened every quarter, which wasn't that bad because I had, professional property management remotely managing this thing for me. But still, those of us who own rental properties, a few of me, it's kind of a pain in the butt to keep these property managers accountable. So 10, 15 are totally fine, but to get up to 30, you're going to go crazy. And that was where I started to search for that next thing. And at that point, I started to pay for higher level masterminds to join. And that was where I discovered what the wealthy do. They go into private placements and syndications, and you and I were talking about infinite banking. They'll do different things like that, and I got opened up to this bigger world.
Awesome. So that was 2015.
Yeah, yeah.
So talk about your portfolio today. How has it transformed since the 11 properties back in 2015?
Yeah, so I mean, like anything, like a big ship, it takes a while to transition over. So 2016, 17, I sold off 7 of the rentals. Last year, I sold off 2. I still have 2 rentals left, but ever since 2016, I've been going into private placements, syndications, mostly apartment deals, at $50,000 a piece. Luckily you get the bonus depreciation from the cost segregation from those deals, which offset all that capital gains from those single family homes. And right now I'm more in a steady state situation where I just go into a good deal on a pretty routine basis, like on a quarterly or whenever the good deal does come up.
Cool. And you're saying that they're about 50,000 a pop is an average amount that you're putting in?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can get into deals for like 25 grand, but to me, those are with newer, inexperienced operators that are kind of desperate for money. And then, there are more institutional operators, which I don't really work with because a lot of times their investor splits are worse for the LPs
Mm-hmm.
and they have heavy fees. So, you know, proven operators that haven't, their head hasn't inflated, it's usually about 50 grand is the minimum size. And that's kind of my rule of thumb. Like I don't put more than like 5% of my net worth into any one
Yeah,
deal and
absolutely.
space it out too.
So your strategy is you're not doing the syndicating. You are finding the operators, and you're just one of the limited partners. Am I understanding that correctly?
Right, that's how I initially started, but because I'm in so many deals, I
Mhm.
kind of got into the operating space myself. So now I'm in the general partnership. But
Cool.
I recognize, like out of myself, that I don't enjoy playing asset manager. I don't enjoy getting on the weekly conference calls with the property managers, going down the hit list, what's coming down the pipeline, and keeping them accountable. And I live in Hawaii. Let's be honest here, right? Like none of this remote landlord stuff. There needs to be a partner or a team in place that kind of checks in on the property manager. The property manager, they make 50, 60 grand a year. They are not responsible for owning a multi-million dollar asset, in my opinion. There
Yeah.
needs to be an asset manager in place.
No, absolutely. I think that's a great way of really picturing it right there. If you're only getting paid $50,000 to $60,000 a year, how can you really trust that person to treat the portfolio just like how
Yeah.
you would treat it yourself? Um, so when you're getting into these deals, what kind of things are you looking for from either an operator standpoint, the actual asset itself? What are some like green flags from you, and what are some red flags?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in a fortunate position where I know how to underwrite deals and I model it. I pull the rent rolls and the P&Ls and I model it myself independently of what the operator does. So I can kind of cut through the garbage and decode the code. But for those who don't know how to do that, and say that that's most investors don't have a clue how to do that,
Hmm.
it's people, it's all your network. You work off referrals off of people who've actually invested at least 50 grand with this person. That's that's the golden rule. So for people who are looking to get into this space, it's all about building relationships with other passive investors.
Yeah, I love that. You and I were talking about, building your network and how that builds your net worth. And then you mentioned it earlier as we were talking about this, is you just started getting around higher level thinkers. So what were some like aha moments that you had when you started getting around these people who were doing exactly what you're doing now? Like, do you remember that one moment where you're like, wow, what am I doing in this single family home stuff? I need to be over here.
Yeah, I mean, I just found myself in a room with like, doctors, lawyers, engineers that, their net worth was all above $1 million. And they all laughed and joked how they all bought those silly single family homes at one point in their life. And then they all are a little embarrassed how they used to think it was so cool to get 10 Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac loans in your name, and how you're so clever when you figure out you can do it 10 in your wife's name. Everybody kind of goes through that period, I think. And not to discount any of that stuff, like if your net worth is under $500,000, like I think that's the way to do it. And even if you do make a pretty good salary, I mean that's how I did. It took me 6 years to build up from one rental property to 10 and get my net worth over 500,000. So I'm not going to discount that. And I think it's a mistake. A lot of people, the book, I do free strategy calls for just helping out new people, and I always get like the young kid who has no money. Oh,
Hmm.
I heard all this stuff on all these podcasts from these multifamily gurus saying you can just get right into it. And I'm like, all right, man, cool. If you want to just a bird dog from them, and they just take all your energy,
Yeah.
go ahead. But or you can do it the get rich surely way, which is not the quick way. Just pick up rental properties, build your net worth, and then jump up to the next level at some point.
Yeah, so I guess, with you going back, let's call it to 2010, 2012, when you're building up this single family home rental portfolio, would you do that again, or would you go straight into multifamily?
I wouldn't buy 11 rentals, that's for sure.
Mm.
I maybe would have bought like a few just to get the experience. But I think if I didn't have those rental properties, I wouldn't be able to navigate that room when I was put in that situation with other high level investors. I'm just a dude with no experience at that point. So I think having experience and coming into it and then using that to parlay and, at least talking with another investor like yourself, right? Like there's an even value exchange. You have some rentals, I have some rentals. It makes sense, and that's how you're going to build an organic relationship. Um, I know some people come in and they're accredited investors, $1 million net worth or more, and they make over 250, and they think they can just jump in a room. But there's a lot of just rich guys that don't have any experience, and they're kind of a dime a dozen.
Yeah, no kidding. So, just looking at this, I guess there's a lot of people who they have strong opinions on one side or another. You are right now saying, hey, I really like this multifamily side of it. What are the things that you get in multifamily that are positives versus what you had as an experience in single family?
I mean, just the economies of scale, one roof. I mean, I think people hear it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I mean, it's just numbers. It's commercial real estate. It's not based on comps. The ability to bump the value. I mean, I think vastly the pros outweigh the cons when it comes to multifamily, but the problem is getting into it. Now that's the hard part. So if you've been kind of stuck in your ways and you've built a pretty good system around you, you're more of an active investor,
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, keep rocking out what you're doing with the single family home side. But most of my clients are high paid professionals, and their highest and best use is kicking butt at their day job. So for those people, it makes more sense to just be a passive investor into bigger deals and invest with the pros. But
Yes.
I think that's what it comes down to. Your level of acumen.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, I've been outspoken about talking about this kind of stuff where, um, you know, of course, Grant Cardone has the Cardone Capital stuff, and there's so many different positives about doing stuff like that. But a lot of people who are getting into real estate, not necessarily like, just for example, myself, when I got into real estate, I thought that was a great investment for me, but I was willing to be active. I was willing to go out there and start doing the work. Whereas that side of things, like what you're talking about, is more of, hey, I just want to be a part of a deal, not have to underwrite it, not have to have the knowledge, not have to have the experience, and just put my money with someone who does have that and get the monthly checks. So you really have to figure out, like, which side are you on? Are you on the passive side? Are you on the active side? And which side do you want to be on, especially when it comes to like single family or multifamily? So if you're talking to someone right now, who, anyone that's listening right now, how would you help them determine if they should be investing with someone like you or using your knowledge to go out and try to learn it and do it themselves?
Well, I mean, it comes down to two big factors: time and money. If money wise, if you're not over $500,000 net worth, you're kind of broke. You got to kind of make more money, right? You got to build up your net worth. And then, but if you do have more money than that, I would say focus on, see what your time is, right? It comes down to what your hourly rate is.
Mm-hmm.
um I mean, I've seen, I pretty much the people making the jump from single family to multifamily, there's a plethora of different gurus out there. In my opinion, it's like a 5% success rate, and it takes 2 or 3 years to kind of build up to a point where you're actually kind of above water. So you have to ask yourself, going through that type of, it's kind of like, do you want to be a doctor where you got to go through undergrad to be at med school, right? Do you want to go through that, or do you want to kind of stay where you're at or invest passively? Like, for if you're a guy making 150 grand a year, and especially if you have kids and a life, I think it's a no-brainer.
Mm-hmm.
If you have more than $500,000 net worth, passive investments all the way. Um, but if you're less than that, yeah, you got to kind of take a more active, more bigger pockets approach, right? Do it yourself.
Absolutely. I think it's so, and this is just a testament to what you said earlier. It's so interesting to hear someone say, "Oh, you have a net worth under $500,000, you're broke." Do you think that Lane from 2010, 2011 would think that, let's just call it a $400,000 net worth, would call himself broke?
Um, I mean, it's always the next level, right? I mean,
Exactly.
I work with these guys, and I'm just appalled of how much they make and how much their net worth is. I mean, but nobody has their net worth stamped upon their forehead, so you've never seen that.
It's crazy. There's a guy actually in our town here that he does something like 300 deals a year with flips, and he's got systems and everything around. But he's one of those guys that just sits in the back of the room whenever we have meetup groups, and you would never know that he is that big of an operator, but he is. It, on
He's
another
got
note here,
sweatpants on all the time,
yeah,
right?
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So on another note here, Lane, you're helping a lot of people too. If people are watching on the YouTube channel right now, they're seeing your background, they're seeing that you've got a nice community that you're helping out. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, for high net worth investors, more passive investors, the name of the game is not talking to brokers, property managers, all these guys. It's building your network of other passive investors so you can build real relationships with to not only get deal flow, but also, all these little tactics, right? Infinite banking. What do you do for CPAs? What do you do for tax, legal, all this type of stuff. And the tactics change, but it's just a different world to get into. And normally you're not some of the places to find these people are not your local RIA and your local and the
Mhm.
free online forums. Those are some of the worst places to go. But where do you find them? Well, if you're like me, you make a podcast, but not everybody's able to do that. But that's why I've kind of cultivated a passive investor group where it's a pay to play type of a deal, and we kind of operate in the bat cave and in secret. So we're sort of a secret society, and that's just my style, and that's the way I do it, and my members like that confidentiality.
That's awesome. Okay. So is the secret society something that you're okay with people knowing how to get in contact with you for that?
Yeah, yeah. Shoot me an email, Lane at Simple Passive Cash Flow. We won't share the secret handshake quite yet, but yeah, I mean, it's not for everybody, right? It's more for guys $500,000 net worth and above, and for everybody else, my heart goes out to them because it sucks working a day job and you're never going to get financially free by investing in these garbage Wall Street investments. That's why, like, if you're just looking to get your first rental property or turnkey rental and passively invest in your own stuff, like everything's on my website. I've got guides for everything. I mean,
That's
the
perfect.
first 8 podcasts are all about turnkey rentals when I used to do it back in the day.
Awesome. And that's just simplepassivecashflow.com.
Yeah, yeah.
Perfect. Okay, cool, man. Can anyone else reach you through social media? Any other ways that you want to let people know about?
I try not to do social media too much. But I do have a free community for my passive investors type. If people want to get added to it, they can join the mailing list and get added to that. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think, people getting started, just check out the first 8 podcasts about turnkey rentals. I mean, I think even if you are more active, you want to transition out of that and we all want to be more passive, right? For time freedom to do
That's
what
the
we
goal.
want.
That's the goal. You're active today, so you can be passive tomorrow. That's what it's all about. Well, Lane, any last words before we log off here?
No, I think that's it. Aloha, everybody. And again, my email is Lane at Simple Passive Cash Flow. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you so much, Lane, for helping our audience today to conquer the world of investing. We'll see ya. Show notes for this one, fearlesskyle.com/Lane. That's Lane. Easy enough. And you can see everything he's got going. If you're a high net worth individual, then all you've got to do is just email him, just like what he said. That's going to be in our show notes. But if you are looking for any ways to get involved in his course and his mastermind in any way, just get connected with Lane. You're definitely going to want to go to the show notes and go to those resources so that you can see exactly what you can do to follow Lane's advice and his podcast as well. That's going to do it here for the Fearless Investor. Thanks for joining us and conquering the world of investing. We'll talk to you next time.